And I just want to welcome everybody to the CPQ demo. My name is Hillary Schwally. I'm a senior sales executive here with RenaissanceTech. On the line with us, I have Ethan and Cora, and Ethan is our pre-sales solution consultant, and Cora is our digital marketing coordinator. And then we also have Charles on the line with us today as well. And Charles is also a sales executive with RenaissanceTech. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through a few slides, give you a little bit of background about CPQ and what CPQ is. And then at that point, I will turn it over to Ethan, who will actually be walking us through the demo today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. So just a little bit of background information about us and who we are as RenaissanceTech. We are an Infor Gold Channel partner. We are a provider of the Infor CPQ product. We specialize in the implementation and integration of the CPQ, and we are based in Columbus, Ohio. So what those services encompass as far as CPQ goes, so what we cover is the implementation, integration, and training. So a little bit more information about us. So our exclusive focus is on the Infor CPQ product. That includes all of the implementation and integration. So this could be integration with your existing ERP, perhaps a CRM. We have over 25 standard integrations and over 45 service level integrations. And we have implemented successfully over 200 projects to date. So what is CPQ? CPQ is a powerful quoting and ordering engine. It is designed for multi-channel selling. So not just internal sales, but also your external sales or even extend that out to your dealers or your customers. And so with CPQ, you can configure not just products, but services and processes, things like workflows, more. It is a tool to automate manufacturing, BOMs, and routing. So we'll actually take a look at this today. So you'll be able to see the actual bill of material being created, as well as the ability to customize to your brand, your rules. So what is the goal of the CPQ platform itself? So the goal is to getting to the 80%. So we want to identify and automate at least 80% of those current processes that are repeatable. And these may be processes, these may be manual processes, these may be repetitive processes. An example of that is double order entry into one system into another, or perhaps you're quoting on Excel today, and then taking that information from an Excel, perhaps pricing is living in another Excel sheet, and then that order entry. So we want to standardize all of that, automate as much as that as possible. And like I said, really that goal is that 80%. And then supplement 10% what is semi-repeatable, and 10% may remain a manual effort. So there may still be some human interaction or intervention there. So CPQ addresses more challenges in today's market. Areas where CPQ excels, obviously this center box here is what we focus on. Those quoting errors, so the reduction in quoting errors, order errors, manual activities, duplication of efforts. But these outlying boxes are also where CPQ excels. Perhaps your products are difficult to customize when we talk about custom or complex products, lack of visual representation, unknown opportunity losses. And if I hop over to that last box, limited product options, little product differentiation, or no engaging digital content. CPQ allows you to bring all of that together across all of your selling channels. With a complete solution with CPQ, as I mentioned, you're not just configuring products, you configure systems or solutions, and you're not just calculating a price, but you're actually managing cost margins, list promotion, discounts, and adders. And it is truly a self-service or automated quoting platform for that multi-channel selling, as well as this last box here, that order fulfillment. So obviously with powerful integration and bringing all of that manufacturing information over for order placement, manufacturing automation, and change management. CPQ allows for easy selection, configuration, and pricing of complex products. Even if You can see here we have a pretty complex, it looks like maybe it's a packaging machine, products through the guided selling process through CPQ. This allows users to configure and price even most complex products, and then ensure that they are only configuring products that are manufacturable. It is a complete quoting and ordering experience. So again, for those internal sales, but also for your dealers, distributors, your external sales as well, would all be able to automate a lot of that quoting and ordering process. So this is just an example of bill of materials. So dynamic BOMs and work orders push into ERP upon order approval and conversion. So we'll actually take a look at that today as well. And then this is a visual engagement piece. There's multiple ways to bring that visual engagement to not just your sales team, but to your customers and then ultimately to an end user. So there's product images, so static product images, perhaps through thumbnails. There's interactive 3D, so you can take images and interact with them, explode them, spin them around, change colors, swap out parts. So we'll take a look at some of that. 2D drawing, so it supports sales and manufacturing through dynamic generation of 2D CAD drawings. So through our CAD integration, you can bring all of that inside the system and then start creating those drawings on the fly, as well as 3D CAD assemblies. And then the last one down here is augmented reality. So this is something that's available today. So you can actually, through that QR code, take these products and allow those users to sort of really immerse themselves into the product. We know we've all done it. I can take a couch or, some windows or a door, and then put that into my real world scenario and see what that looks like. So that's sort of here and now. What are people doing now as with the engagement? Compelling proposals. So you can create proposals directly out of the CPQ system, which you can email directly out of the system. No more cutting and pasting on Word documents or what have you. These are all custom proposals that you can create and manage with inside CPQ, as well as our what's called IDM or Infor Document Management. We'll talk a little bit about that today as well. And then our anytime, anywhere access. So you can see here through our intuitive UI, doesn't matter what platform you're using or where you are, you can access the platform to create those quotes. And then through our Infor Go app, you could be on your phone, even, in a parking lot or on a job site or what have you, and access the platform and be able to generate a quote for a customer. And then this is just I call it a little bit of a brag page, right? So this is our Nucleus Research. So Nucleus Research is an independent company, and they go out and they compile this information and they say, hey, we have this information. Do you want to buy it from us? This independent case study is available. So CPQ returns $6.22 for every dollar spent. And then that same Nucleus Research releases this every year that allows sort of just kind of stack how those competitors all rank. So Infor CPQ emerges as a leader in the Nucleus CPQ value matrix. And then this is where I pause and I hand it over to Ethan, and we'll hop over into the demo.
Before we get started, just a little brief introduction about myself. Again, my name's Ethan Jung. I am a pre-sale solution consultant here at RenaissanceTech. One of the things that's really unique and differentiates the Infor CPQ, we're talking about a suite of capabilities for everyone to operate on. And at the heart of this suite is the configurator engine. And then one of the things that we're going to be showing you is how these systems can all be communicating back and forth to provide that unified system. And often one of the things that we hear is the lack of systems being integrated, either from the quoting solution that is either on a spreadsheet or an outdated CPQ solution that was built 10 years ago. Tribal knowledge from people that has been with the company has built up that knowledge base, but any incoming or new products get introduced can quickly erode that tribal knowledge. And we hear this a lot. And what this means is that since tools and systems are often separated from each other, this could lead to a lot of manual entry and a lot of duplication of effort, which could lead to creating errors. And CPQ is really designed to connect these systems together under a unified single platform to everyone to be operating on. And really, what do I mean by that? So let's go ahead and create a quote to help illustrate how a CPQ can create a complex product quickly and easily. And for today's demo, I'm going to be playing the role of a salesperson as well as an administrator so that we can go ahead and see the full integration. So I'm going to go ahead and go from my RenaissanceTech homepage here to create a quote using the big button. And when I click on the button, it launches me into enterprise quoting. And from here, some best practice is always going to be to select the customer. And for today's demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and select Adams Consulting. And these customers are essentially being synced in from Syteline in this case, although you can also sync it from your ERP, or you can have these be living inside of your enterprise quoting solution. And I'm going to go ahead and select the customer. And now that my customer has been selected, I'm going to go ahead and use my dropdown of my contact. And my contact can have one or many contact information. And I'm also going to have a ship to if you have it as well. And now that I have my contact information as well as my ship to, let's go ahead and begin the selection of products. I'm going to go ahead and maximize my screen to provide more screen space. I'm going to go ahead and add that item. As you can see here, here is the list of categories that we have here. And this is our demo library. And the library is filled with everything from 3D boats to forklifts and everything in between. However, for your own organization, they could be categorized by different product lines or different groupings, or you can have them be displayed out all in a alphabetical order and to be searched by filtering here at the top. For today's demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and go to my structures. And when I go to structures, I'm going to have my outbuilding, which is similar to building, say, a greenhouse or anything of that nature. And CPQ really uses images, drop-down menus, text boxes, radio buttons, free text boxes, really anything to help the end user build a product quickly and easily. And as you can see, we're looking at an image of the type of roof that we're going to be looking to build, as well as the beginning framework of the structure. So I'm going to go ahead and select the dual roof. When we get to the next section where we can see what our wall options are as this next tab, but we can also set some of these defaults to the CPQ rule sets. And what this does is it allows the most common answers to be populated so that, again, a user like myself doesn't have to repeat the steps over and over again to come up to the same conclusion. And what we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible to create a complex product. So as I go through the selection process with my drop-down or my radio buttons, I see that this is what I want, and I can go ahead and continue to move on. And I can see my doors, and I can see that I can add doors. And notice that my image has now changed from the framework image to the beginning sets of a 2D image. From here, I can also take a look and see that my front wall, as well as any sort of text boxes I have, as well as the color of my dropdown. And I'm going to go ahead and change this from red to orange. And now it moves me into the windows, and similar concept with windows with free text boxes as well as a dropdown. And I'm going to keep this as blue. And as I continue on, notice that my doors have been placed and my windows are now populated in blue. And I'm now starting to see a 2D rendering of my building itself. And what I can also see here is now I can see the dimensional qualities as well as the surface area here, as you can see, as well as the volume, as well as the price that's being calculated dynamically. And what we're doing is by answering some baseline questions, users can create a complex building like this outdoor building quickly and easily. And I can also see here under the summary, all of the information that I've added and a summation of the details. Now, usually at this time, engineering would need to get involved, some sort of calculations on how much material is going to be needed to cover the building with insulation or roofing material to cover the roofing surface by measuring the surface area. As you can see here, we've already done those calculations for the surface area as well as the volume, but we're talking about how systems need to communicate with each other and to automate and streamline the sales process. And by going ahead and clicking on this draw roll schematic, it allows the user to have the CPQ to do the calculations and not have to involve engineering on day-to-day tasks. And this allows the engineering to focus on higher level design engineering work, but it also allows the end user like myself as a salesperson to be able to let the CPQ do the calculations so that we can go ahead and get the quote out quickly to the customer. And as you can see here, based on the volume and surface area, we know that the starting roll length is going to be 20.5 feet. And based upon the incremental dimensions, we can see how much of that front wall needs to be covered, as well as from here, we can now see how much material is needed to be used. Furthermore, we can now see a design rendering of the front of that wall to show you exactly here's that 20.5 length, as well as going up based on the dimensional quality. Now, of course, we often see customers change their minds. And when they do, CPQ is designed to provide an easy way to make changes quickly and easily. So for example, I can go here and I can see that under my summary, I see that my dimensional qualities is width of 100 and length is 200, and my eave height was 20 and my pitch was 2 degrees. Now, if I wanted to, I can go ahead and use my summary to jump right back to where I want to make those changes. So I can go here, click on width, and notice that my width is now highlighted. And I can change my width to be 150. I'm going to change my length to be 175. My eave height from 20 feet will now be 27. And my pitch now will be from 2 to say 13. And then I can also go to add doors. And I'm going to actually say I want it to be a back wall door. And I now want to change my windows to be left-hand side. And I actually want 3 windows instead of 5. And I want my doors to be, instead of blue, I want this to be, we'll just say red. Now, as you can see here, my information has changed, as well as my new calculations, as well as my new surface areas and my new volume. And down here at the very bottom, the pricing has changed again. Now, if I go here, I can see my 2D schematic drawing with my 3 red windows and my 1 door that I have. When I uncheck and click redraw, it's going to redraw that schematic and I can see my new dimensional qualities. And CPQ is really designed to give users the ability to take things like tribal knowledge or a complicated spreadsheet that might not make sense for the beginning user and begin to simplify the coding process so that it's easy and it guides the user like myself to make the selections of something that's very complicated. I'm going to go ahead and finish. And what we are landing back on the quote. We can see that outbuilding has been created, as well as the specs of the building itself. What we've done up to now is we took something that is normally pretty complicated to build, like a building structure, like an outbuilding or a shed, and be able to build it in about a minute with all the calculations and all of the bill of materials along with it. And as you can see, we also got 2D dynamic drawings to help visualize our product. And what this means is that salespeople that usually spend hours to build a quote using spreadsheets can now really get time to focus back on other business tasks that help drive their business. And what this really leads to is a question for yourself. What does getting time back from your organization mean to you and your company? And so one of the other challenges that we often hear at Infor CPQ is how these separated systems need to connect back to each other so that they can see what's going on. One of the examples that I often think back about is that I used to know a company that used to build seats for buses. And if you ordered a bus, you physically had to walk into the warehouse to check what was available and to see what was in inventory. And so that way you can go ahead and quote them on the correct delivery times. Now, this is often inefficient and not very accurate because you don't necessarily know if they are promised or on hold. And really, how does CPQ really solve that? And what we're going to be talking about again is that unified platform that is called enterprise quoting. So let's go ahead and go to our enterprise quoting dashboard. And as you can see, this is our dashboard, and we can see here some widgets of information. You can see here we have a video. We can see some things here like bookmarks, but I can also be tied back to informational qualities that I can pull in from the ERP, and in this case, Syteline. So I can go ahead and look up customers that are inside of Syteline, also inside of enterprise quoting. And how I can tell they're inside of enterprise quoting and in Syteline is that see the customer number here, which is the ERP ID. Furthermore, I can also see the quote that I had just created, but I can also look up information about what's in inventory for non-configurable items. So I can look at all of the products here and look at this hub and look it up. And what this now tells me is I can see how many are available, what is the price, and what is the break quantities if I want to take advantage of volume discounts. And really, unlike the seating company I referred to earlier, I can look inside of my ERP, or specifically in this case, CSI, and see how many we have, how many are needed to get the volume discount. And this means I don't have to wander into the back of the factory floor to count supply anymore. And this means that sales doesn't need to have access into the ERP that could potentially disrupt things, and so that I can put my focus back on business related activities or sales related activities. And so, what have we done up to this point so far? We've been able to build a complex product like a building with a lot of calculations quickly and easily. But I can also check those inventory levels and add stock items like that hub to be as part of that outbuilding. And I can add that quickly and easily to the quote. And since we're all on an integrated system to be operating on, it's all tying back together. So let's go ahead and go back to that quote I just created. And now we're back to this quote. And let's go ahead and add that hub item that we spoke about. So I can either type it in by that product number, which is, I can look it up by the product. And I'm going to go ahead and add that item to my list. And as you can see here, what we now have is when we look at the line, see that outbuilding here, as well as that hub part as well. Now, often we hear that clients, once they settle on a product, getting them the document to review is also a lot of manual work. And often this takes the longest amount of time because this is the most manual of the process. And if they change something, it delays things even further. And you want to get that quote out as quickly as possible. And here at Infor CPQ, we want things to be easy and automated. And this also goes towards that document creation. So what I can actually do is I can go ahead and, as I'm looking at version 1, I can go ahead and create another entire version of this quote. And as you can see here, here's version 1, and then here's version 2 as it's been documented. Now, the benefit of this is that, one, it keeps the pipeline clean. And as a salesperson, I don't have to worry about which version is going to be active or inactive. But also at the same time, when one of these quotes gets acted on, such as one's lost, one closed or expired, all the rest of the quotes that are associated with that quote, which is right here, it's quote 2640, drops off the system. Again, we're trying to make things as easy and automated for the end user as possible. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So what I can actually do from here is generate a document, and I can actually preview this as an example. I can go ahead and when I create this document, it's taking all of that information from the quote lines and dropping it into proposal documentation. As you can see here, here is just a default template of here's that quote, who it's going to, the person that it's going to here, as well as when it was created, expiration date, any terms and conditions, as well as here's the outbuilding product with the summary of the spec that we had earlier created, as well as here's that line item of that hub spoke, hub motor product. Now you can have as many templates as you want. It's really dependent upon you, and it's really going to be a tool for generating easily. Furthermore, I can also go ahead and email it straight to the customer. So for an example, create another line item, but this time let's go ahead and create a shed. As an example, customer wants to see 2 different versions of the building, one with the greenhouse, one without, maybe one with a shed associated with it. And this time I used the naming convention filter and typed in shed, and I'd land straight on my outdoor shed. So when I click on outdoor shed, it leads me and opens up the CPQ configurator, and we can go ahead and begin to create it. This time I can also have a 3D interactive version of my shed. Earlier, we saw a 2D and a static rendering. This one, we can actually see a 3D rendering and be able to interact with this. So for instance, here is that shed that we're looking at. And then I'm going to go ahead and change this to 10 by 15. And now it's elongated. And this time we're using images, but we can also have tooltips to tell me what is important or some information about the product I'm building that I should consider. And looks like I have vinyl siding. And when I change the vinyl siding, notice that the edges of it changes. And I can also now change it from asphalt to any number of changes I have. And I'm going to go ahead and go through my selection process. And I'm going to actually have, do I want windows? Yes, I do want windows along the right wall. I want to add another window. I want to add this to my left wall. And then I have a repeating steps of adding a window to the back wall. And as you can see here, I've been able to add the windows to all the different walls. And if I highlight it, I can move this window around to help me visualize what I want to add. Now I'm going to go on and I'm going to move on to skylight. Say no to the skylight, even though I can see a tooltip saying it benefits and includes natural light, energy efficiency, and ventilation. I can now move on to my floor anchors and say that I don't want any anchors, as well as any additional add-ons. As an example, I'm going to go ahead and add a drip cap. And what is a drip cap? I can also use images as well to help me navigate. I'm also going to add a wood ramp. And what I'm now doing is I can see the entire visualization as well as the detail of what I've just created, as well as the price that is updated dynamically here down at the bottom. Now that I've settled on this, I can go ahead and finish. Now going to populate entire shed as my third line item. And so now I can see the outbuilding, the hub, and the outdoor shed. As you can see here, here's version 1 we're currently looking at. And if I go to version 2, notice that shed is now gone because we're doing it on version 1 of this quote. I'm going to go ahead and create that document to show you how the different documents can look. We can see that the document is in different styles and formats. And what that means is that the document is going to be, you can have this document look any which way you'd like. So for an example, and let me go ahead and make this bigger, we're looking at the outbuilding as some spec details. We're looking at the description of the hub as a serial number, or in this case, we're looking at the shed as more of a descriptive line items of what you're getting. So much more characteristics of marketing material. And from here, I can go ahead and save this to the quote. And do I want to preview this? Not necessarily. And then from here, I can actually now email this straight out to the customer. And we talked earlier about best practices of populating that contact information. It's because the contact information is also going to include their email address. And I could say this is for proposal, and this is document that is populating. And I can go ahead and send this straight out to the customer. And as an example, I have the customer's email address, and here is that quote that I just sent out, as well as the attached template of that proposal. So now let's go ahead and assume that David Ross at Adams Consulting has approved the quote, and let's go ahead and push this into an order to show you the integration between enterprise coding and our ERP system. If there's other things like workflows, such as pricing approvals, that can also be handled up here. So we can also have pricing details to change, mark up or mark down, adjust by line pricing, and any sort of workflow triggers that either gets escalated by thresholds can also be handled here. Engineering needs to be involved in the review of the spec sheets before they're approved. That can also be incorporated. Workflow triggers for pricing approvals and configuration approvals behave the same exact way. The most important thing is that everyone is operating on that same unified platform. And what we're also doing is that we're automating it by building the bill of materials entirely in the background. And let's go ahead and show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go ahead and convert this to an order. And as a final checkpoint, I can either put my PO number in here, or I can go ahead and put the PO number in here as a final check just to make sure all of the information. So if you have carrier, shipping, contact information, information that needs to be reviewed before submission, you can do that from here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and submit my order. And now we have the order submitted as well. So as you can see here, here is that order that has been submitted, as well as here's that source quote, that 2640-1 of that quote that we had earlier submitted. That ties it all back. And speaking of that, since we're acted on version 1, let's go ahead and take a look at the other versions of the quote that I created. And notice here that this says it's ordered with the same exact quote, which was the outbuilding and the hub motor without the outdoor shed is now closed. Again, since we're now on an integrated platform that's communicating back and forth with each other, one, the versioning helps me to keep my pipeline clean. And secondarily, it helps me as a sales user to be able to focus on my business tasks at hand. And since quoting is tied directly into the ERP, now we can go ahead and take a look at the order. So what have we really done up to this point? What we've done is created two different complex products of buildings quickly and easily without the need of engineering to do some calculations, because I have the CPQ doing it by on the background. I'm also building an entire bill of materials in the background using some of the business logic and the manufacturing rules tied to it to be able to build the dynamic bill of materials, as well as a salesperson, I've been able to check the inventory levels of what's in the warehouse since my platform is now tied back into the ERP system so that I can see what's in inventory and what can I promise to the end customer. So here is my order that I've submitted. As you can see here, here's that outbuilding. It's been submitted. Here's that hub, as well as here's that outdoor shed. And I can see that it's been submitted. If I go back, I can see here that quote. And oftentimes this is what you can now go ahead and take a look at the Infor Syteline. And since we have an order number and a quote that's tied to it, when we open CSI, we can now begin to take a look at it. Right now, I'm in CSI as an administrator, although if you really wanted to, you can also, if you have salespeople who have access to the ERP system, they can also use this as well. One final thing is, as you can see here, I can see the orders that are submitted down here at the bottom, as well as any sort of pricing approvals, as well as configuration approvals that I can. So from here, I can also take a look at Adams Consulting and see the orders that I've submitted for Adams Consulting. And as you can see here, here's that order, and I can go ahead and go directly into the ERP straight from here as well. And what we're going to do from here is show you how the bill of materials can be built dynamically in the background so that as an end user, you don't have to have it be entered in manually and it's being built from the CPQ solution. Also, if there's any sort of changes that happens to the bill of materials, this could also be captured dynamically inside the CPQ inside of CSI. From here, what we could do is take a look at the customer orders, and this is going to start looking awfully familiar. Filter in place. And as you can see, here is the customer order. Here's that customer, Adams Consulting. Here is the 3 line items of the customer order. So here's that outbuilding. Here's that torque motor. And here's that shed. And when we further go into Syteline or CSI, we can actually go to the source and we can go ahead and look at the bill of materials. And what it's doing now in the background is it's collecting all the information and creating that bill of materials dynamically based on the CPQ business rules. I'll go to source and we're going to go now to the engineering board. And this is just an example of the shed, but we can see here is that shed, as well as here's that drip cap that we talked about earlier, as well as the anchors and that wood ramp. Now, one of the common things that we see is that clients will often try and ask for changes or a change of order, even during or after the production. And that's really up to an organization's best practices to see how flexible you are and what changes they can make. But let's say for the sake of example, David Ross at Adams Consulting wanted to add in a skylight and make a change to the roof to incorporate solar panels. Now, as an end user, as a salesperson, I might be involved with that and I might have to recreate the entire order as well as void out the existing order. Or as an engineer, I would have to go back to the drawing board and recreate the entire bill of materials. But you actually, within side of CPQ, you don't actually have to do any of that. You can actually make the changes right inside of here. And what do I mean by that is I'm going to go ahead and add the skylight as a subcomponent as well as the solar panel as another component. And how I do that is I'm going to go ahead and close out the engineering board. And I'm going to go ahead and within the job order for the shed, click on configure. And what it's going to do is going to relaunch the configurator right inside of CSI. And as you can see here that we see the changes that they wanted to make was the asphalt composite to be solar shingles. And when I click on solar shingles, one of the things that it does is that it gives me a alert message of compatible products and items, like the solar panel needing to have a steel floor, whereas right now I picked no floor. So it's giving me compatibility messages to say, if I choose this, I should also be choosing that. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that change. And notice now it's gone from no floor to a steel floor. Secondarily, he also wanted to add a skylight. So I'm going to go ahead and add the skylights. I can go ahead and actually visualize that inside of the CPQ. So notice I can see the skylight being added here dynamically. And since we added the solar panels and the skylight, I can go ahead and finish. And what it'll do is it'll land me back inside of CSI. And now I can go ahead and pull up the new bill of materials. So when I go here and click on the engineering board again, notice here that the steel floor as well as the skylight that is now incorporated. And here is also the solar as well. So in closing, what have we seen so far up to this point? We can see how an integrated solution with CPQ can streamline your business practices. We can also see how a solution like a CPQ can help users build a complete BOM dynamically. We can see how streamlining all of these tasks under one unified platform not only can save time and effort to the end user, but also mitigate any potential mistakes and have those systems communicate back and forth with each other. Consider this, according to a white paper authored by Google and Corporate Executive Board, 35 to 50% of all B2B sales goes to a vendor that responds first. So it begs the question, what does that extra time really mean to your company? Thank you.